Chapter 1. The Question That Changed Everything. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror of my small apartment in downtown Toronto, asking myself the same question I'd been wrestling with for months. Why do I feel so invisible when everyone else seems to shine? My name is Marcus, and at 28, I thought I had life figured out. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech company, had a decent apartment, and what most people would call a normal life. But there was something missing, a confidence that seemed to come naturally to others, but felt like a foreign language to me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was sitting in our weekly team meeting when Sarah, our new project manager from Melbourne, Australia, walked in. She wasn't conventionally beautiful by magazine standards, but something about her presence made the entire room shift. People gravitated toward her, hung on her words, and seemed genuinely excited to work with her. She spoke with quiet confidence, made eye contact with everyone, and had this way of making each person feel important. What does she have that I don't? I wondered, feeling that familiar pang of inadequacy. After the meeting, I approached my colleague Jake, who'd lived in several countries, including the UK and New Zealand, before settling in Canada. "Hey Jake, can I ask you something weird?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Shoot," he replied, grabbing his coffee. "Do you ever notice how some people just command attention? Like Sarah today? What is it about certain people that makes them so magnetic?" Jake paused, studying my face. "You know, Marcus, that's actually a really deep question. Have you ever heard of Carl Jung?" I shook my head. He was this brilliant Swiss psychologist who studied human behavior and attraction. He believed that most people don't recognize their own power, their own magnetism. Want to know something interesting? I have a friend who might be able to help you understand this better. Chapter 2. Meeting the Mentor. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting across from Dr. Walker Teddy in his cozy office in Austin, Texas. Jake had arranged this meeting during one of my business trips to the States. Dr. Teddy was a renowned psychiatrist who specialized in self-perception and human attraction psychology. "So, Marcus, Doctor," Teddy began, his warm Texas accent immediately putting me at ease. "Jake tells me you're curious about the psychology of attraction and presence." "I guess I am," I admitted. "I feel like I'm missing something fundamental about how to connect with people and feel confident in myself." Dr. Teddy leaned back in his chair, a knowing smile crossing his face. "Let me tell you something that might surprise you. In my 30 years of practice, I've discovered that most people, especially men, are far more attractive and magnetic than they realize. Carl Jung called this the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we can't see but others can." He pulled out a notebook and began sketching. Jung believed that attraction isn't just about looks, it's about energy, presence, and authenticity. "Let me share with you 12 signs that you might be more attractive than you think. Signs that are backed by psychological research and real human behavior." Chapter 3. The First Revelation. "Sign number 1, Dr. Teddy began, is when people get nervous around you." I almost laughed. "Nobody gets nervous around me. I'm the one who gets nervous around others." "Are you sure about that?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Think carefully. Have you ever noticed someone fidgeting, adjusting their clothes, or speaking differently when they're talking to you?" I thought back to recent interactions. There was Lisa from accounting, who always seemed to stumble over her words when asking me about reports, and my neighbor Tom, who usually talked non-stop, but became oddly quiet whenever we chatted in the hallway. "Maybe," I said slowly. "Here's what Jung discovered," Dr. Teddy continued. "When someone is genuinely attracted to or impressed by another person, their nervous system reacts. They might touch their neck, cross their arms, speak faster or slower. In Australia, they did a study with 500 participants and found that 73% of people showed physical signs of nervousness when interacting with someone they found attractive or intimidating, in a good way. He handed me a small journal. I want you to start observing. For the next week, pay attention to how people act around you. Don't judge, just notice. Chapter 4. The Observation Game. Back in Toronto, I began what I called the observation game. At first, I felt silly, like I was imagining things, but slowly, patterns began to emerge. At the coffee shop near my office, I noticed that Maya, the barista, always seemed to take extra care with my order. She'd ask about my day, remember my usual drink, and sometimes her hands would shake slightly when handing me my change. During lunch meetings, I observed that my colleague David from our London office would often pause mid-sentence when I asked questions, as if he was carefully considering his response. His body language would shift. He'd lean forward, maintain eye contact longer than usual. This is weird, I thought. Are people actually reacting to me differently than I assumed? I called Dr. Teddy to share my observations. Excellent, he said. You're beginning to see what others have always seen. Now let's talk about sign number 2. People glance at you repeatedly. Chapter 5. The Power of Presence. In New Zealand, Dr. Teddy explained during our phone call, researchers conducted a fascinating study. They placed hidden cameras in public spaces and tracked eye movement patterns. What they found was remarkable. Certain individuals received what they called the second look, up to 40% more than others. The second look, I asked. That's when someone looks at you, looks away, then looks back again. It's unconscious behavior that indicates something about you caught their attention in a meaningful way. I started paying attention to this phenomenon. On the subway, I noticed a woman reading a book who glanced up at me, looked back at her book, then glanced up again. At the grocery store, I caught a man doing the same thing while we were both in the produce section. But why would people look at me twice? I asked Dr. Teddy during our next session. Because presence isn't about being the loudest or most obvious person in the room, he explained. Sometimes it's about the energy you carry. Jung wrote about something called authentic presence. It's when someone is genuinely comfortable in their own skin, even if they don't realize it. Chapter 6. The Compliment Paradox. Sign number 3 is something I call the compliment paradox, Dr. Teddy said. This is when you underestimate yourself but constantly receive compliments. I laughed. I don't get that many compliments. Are you sure? Think about the last month. Did anyone comment on your work, your ideas, your helpfulness? As I reflected, I realized he was right. My boss had mentioned twice that I had good instincts for marketing campaigns. My friend Emma had said I was surprisingly insightful during a conversation about relationships. Even my mum had commented that I seemed more mature and thoughtful during our last video call. In the UK, Dr. Teddy continued, psychologists studied what they called authentic attraction. They found that people who receive consistent positive feedback but don't internalize it often possess qualities that others find genuinely appealing: authenticity, humility, and emotional intelligence. Chapter 7. The Excuse Pattern. Sign number 4 might surprise you, Dr. Teddy said during our next session. People seek you out for insignificant reasons. I thought about this. My co-worker Janet often asked me to help with simple computer problems she could easily Google. My neighbor frequently asked me to explain things that seemed obvious. Even my sister called me for advice about situations she was perfectly capable of handling herself. You see, Marcus, when people are drawn to someone, they look for excuses to interact. It's not about the task, it's about connecting with you. Dr. Teddy shared a study from Canada where researchers found that 68% of people admitted to creating reasons to interact with someone they found attractive or interesting. But I never thought people wanted to be around me, I admitted. That's the point, he said gently. The most magnetic people often don't realize their impact because they're not trying to have one. They're just being themselves. Chapter 8: The Unexpected Reaction. As I continued applying Dr. Teddy's insights, something unexpected happened. I began noticing sign number 5. Some people criticized me without real reason. At work, there was this guy named Brad who seemed to find fault with everything I did. He'd make snide comments about my presentations, question my ideas in meetings, and generally act dismissive. "Dr. Teddy," I said during our call, "I think your theory might be wrong. This guy at work clearly doesn't find me attractive or magnetic." Dr. Teddy chuckled. "Actually, that might be sign number 5. Sometimes, when someone possesses natural magnetism, it can make insecure people uncomfortable. They criticize not because of anything you're doing wrong, but because your presence makes them examine their own insecurities." He referenced a study from Australia where researchers found that individuals with high authentic presence scores were 45% more likely to experience unfounded criticism from insecure colleagues. "Don't take it personally," he advised. "Consider it confirmation that you're shining brighter than you realize." Chapter 9: The Stranger's Smile. Sign number 6 became apparent during my daily commute. I started noticing that strangers would smile at me, not flirtatiously, but genuinely. The elderly man at the bus stop, the woman walking her dog, even the serious-looking businessman in the elevator. This happens because authentic energy is contagious, Dr. Teddy explained. When someone is comfortable in their own skin, it creates a positive vibration that others can sense. A study in the United States found that people with high emotional intelligence and authentic presence received spontaneous smiles from strangers 60% more often than the control group. I began smiling back, and something beautiful happened. My days became brighter. Interactions felt warmer. I was building connections without even trying. Chapter 10: The Uncomfortable Truth. Sign number 7 was harder to accept. Dr. Teddy explained that sometimes even people in relationships would notice me. "I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable," I protested. "You're not doing anything wrong," he assured me. "This isn't about you actively pursuing anyone. It's about understanding that when someone has genuine magnetism, it doesn't go unnoticed. The key is to be respectful and aware, but not to dim your light because of others' reactions." This insight helped me understand some awkward moments I'd experienced, like when my friend's girlfriend seemed overly interested in our conversations, or when married colleagues lingered after meetings to chat. Chapter 11: The Digital Reflection Sign. Number 8. Manifested in my online presence. I'd always been casual about social media, posting simple photos and thoughts, but I started noticing increased engagement, more likes, comments, and messages, even on mundane posts. Your authenticity translates digitally, Dr. Teddy explained. People can sense genuine energy even through a screen. A study in Canada found that individuals who scored high on authenticity measures received 40% more positive social media engagement, even when their content wasn't particularly polished. Chapter 12. The push and pull sign number 9 was the most confusing. Men and women would seem very interested in me, then suddenly pull away, only to return later. I experienced this with a potential romantic interest named Claire. We'd had amazing conversations, clear chemistry, then she'd become distant for a week before reaching out again. This is actually about them, not you, Dr. Teddy explained. When someone encounters genuine magnetism, it can be overwhelming. They might feel intimidated or unsure how to proceed. The fact that they come back shows the strength of your authentic presence. Chapter 13. The Invisible Power. Sign number 10 hit me like a revelation. The most attractive people often don't realize their own power. Marcus, Dr. Teddy said during one of our sessions, you've been carrying this magnetism all along. You just couldn't see it because you were looking in the wrong mirror, the one that reflected your insecurities instead of your strengths. He shared Jung's theory about the authentic self, the idea that our true power comes not from trying to be someone else, but from fully embracing who we are. Chapter 14. The Lasting Impact Signs. 11 and 12 became apparent as I continued this journey. People began noticing my absence more than my presence, and comfortable silences felt intense rather than awkward. During a team dinner, I had to leave early. The next day, 3 different colleagues mentioned how the energy had changed after I left. It wasn't the same without you, Sarah said. In conversations, I noticed people seemed comfortable with pauses. They'd look at me with interest, as if processing not just my words, but my presence. Chapter 15. The transformation 6 months after meeting Dr. Teddy, I barely recognized myself. Not physically, but energetically. I walked differently, spoke with quiet confidence, and most importantly, I began to see myself through others' eyes. The shy, insecure Marcus was still there, but he was no longer driving the bus. Instead, I was operating from a place of authentic self-awareness and genuine confidence. At work, I was promoted to senior marketing strategist. My boss said I had natural leadership presence and that people felt comfortable bringing ideas to me. In my personal life, relationships deepened. I started dating someone wonderful, not because I was trying to impress her, but because I was genuinely comfortable being myself. The most amazing part, I began helping others recognize their own magnetism. My friend Kevin, who'd always felt awkward in social situations, started applying the same principles. Within months, he gained confidence and found a career he loved. Chapter 16. The Ripple Effect. Dr. Teddy had warned me about this. When you recognize your own authentic power, you can't help but see it in others too. He was right. I started noticing the quiet magnetism in my shy co-worker, the genuine warmth of the security guard at our building, the authentic presence of my neighbor who'd always seemed unremarkable. You're becoming what Jung called an authentic attractor, Dr. Teddy explained. You're not trying to be magnetic. You're simply being authentically yourself, and that draws people in. Chapter 17. The Real Secret. During our final session, Dr. Teddy shared the ultimate truth about attraction and magnetism. Marcus, the secret isn't about becoming someone different. It's about removing the barriers that prevent others from seeing who you've always been. Every person has this magnetism. It's part of being human. The only difference is awareness and acceptance. He handed me a final note. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You've done that. Now help others do the same." Conclusion: the mirror that couldn't lie. Today, as I write this story, I'm sitting in my new office. I started my own marketing consultancy focused on helping people and brands find their authentic voice. The mirror in my bathroom still shows the same face, but the person looking back is completely different. I think about all the people who might be reading this, wondering if they possess that invisible magnetism. If you're questioning whether you're attractive, magnetic, or worthy of attention, let me tell you something. You are. The 12 signs Dr. Teddy taught me aren't about physical beauty or superficial charm. They're about the authentic energy that every human being possesses. You might not see it yet, but others do. They've always seen it. The nervous laughter when you speak, the second glances from strangers, the compliments you brush off, the people who seek you out for small reasons, the criticism from insecure individuals, the spontaneous smiles from strangers, the attention you receive without trying, the confusion you create in others because your energy is so genuine, the power you don't recognize, the impact of your absence, and the intensity of comfortable silences in your presence. These are all signs of your natural magnetism. But here's the real secret. This journey isn't about becoming attractive to others. It's about becoming attractive to yourself. When you see yourself clearly, when you accept your authentic power, when you stop hiding behind insecurities and start living from your truth, that's when the magic happens. Your magnetism was never missing. It was just waiting for you to notice it. The mirror couldn't lie, but I was looking at the wrong reflection. Now I see clearly. I was always enough. I was always magnetic. I was always worthy. And so are you.